Well, joining me now via Skype from Dubai is Public Affairs Analyst Gbola Oba. Good morning. Thanks for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity once again.
All right. Now, since 1999, the various governments and leaders of thought have spoken about issues bordering on the cost of governance. But one question that comes to mind is, are we really ready to look into these issues, or are we just paying lip service with all of these discussions?
We seem to have perfected the art of paying lip service. We seem to have perfected the art of faddishly or fashionably touching the topic without addressing the central philosophical core that is allowing the untoward phenomenon to fester in our society.
All right, now you remember the Steve Orosanye report in 2012 that brought about, laid out several issues if we are to address the cost of governance. But since then, nothing has been done about that report. And one thing that the President Jonathan spoke about at the time was that the 1999 Constitution, as it is, does not give room for him to cut down on the number of ministers. Is that where we are to begin?
To be honest with you, the number of ministerial appointments are not quite the issue. When Steve Orosanye gave that report, we had less than 700 agencies, federal agencies. And you must remember that each agency has a DG. Apart from having a DG, has average about 200 to 250 staff members. But when Steve Orosanye gave that report, we had less than 700. As we speak now, because with every legislation enacted by Parliament, we build an agency into it, we have more than 1,100 agencies. 1,100 agencies with DGs, an average of 200 staff members. We have perfected the art of supply-side governance. A budget is made. A group of people who are either appointees or employees of government are given the opportunity through a particular platform called a specific agency to spend the money. With this kind of system, it is inevitable that the cost of governance will be ballooning because there is no agency head or no agency bureaucrat who would have a budget and not want to exhaust the budget because they know that if they don't exhaust the budget, next year they will not get the same allocation or they will get a lesser allocation. So supply-side government based on money comes, we spend. But let's change the central philosophy of governance. Let's make political appointees and bureaucrats, let's make them like marketers and agents to get development happening, and they're getting something. They're getting incentivized from the development they orchestrate, or from the development they bring about into society. Until we change that central philosophy of governance, this will keep happening.
One aspect that has always been raised, or one issue that has always been raised, has to do with the issues of the salaries and allowances of the legislature. And now the 1999 Constitution, if it has to be amended and also looking to all of that, how do you see that working? Would we succeed? Because recently, Senator Rochas Okorocha was saying that each state should cut down on the number of senators to perhaps one.
I heard Senator Rochas Okorocha's remark, ironically, on the floor of the hallowed chamber of the Senate itself. I also heard recently the remark of Governor Fayemi of Ekiti State. as seemingly encouraging as these remarks are, and as seemingly somewhat imperative that the cries are, I am of the opinion that those opinions and remarks are at best cosmetic, and they are like addressing the symptoms at the expense of the disease.
Really?
The Yorubas have a saying that somebody is seemingly living leprosy or skin cancer and trying to fight eczema. Look, the cost of governance will naturally balloon where the philosophical order of governance is such that money comes, political appointees and civil servants spend. The two most frustrating entities in Nigeria now to good governance, the two most frustrating arms of society now to good governance are the public servants, the political appointees, and the bureaucrats. And the reason is just because they are designed to take resources from state, rent seek on the resources, and then give an impression that they are doing something. Let us change the core. Let us change the central goal of the objective to adding value and benefiting from the value.
The cost of governance has become a big issue which has continued to dominate socio-economic discourse. Now, it seems like each administration comes and say they want to reduce the cost of governance, and nothing is done. It becomes an issue for the media or on paper. What can be done? How can the government reduce the cost of governance such that the dividends of democracy goes down to the grassroots?
Fantastic question. And my best answer for that question is to give an analogy to your viewers. Which organization would you think would save money the most and maximize the use of resources between one, an organization that guarantees anybody who is a staff member, once you are on the staff list or the management board of that organization, you just know that you are going home with a fixed amount of money, and you can also use your position, leverage negatively your position to rent seek by being a gatekeeper, frustrating those who patronize the organization, wanting to achieve something, making sure that you fleece them, you get something out of them. Or an organization that tells you, you know what, I will guarantee this minimum level of revenue for you, but if you then create value by galvanizing development or by being an agent of making sure that development is brought about, you will be allowed by law to be incentivized for the degree of development that you help the populace or you help our clients to achieve. Until we change the central philosophy of governance, we will have evangelically passionate human beings like Professor Issei Sage, the chairman of PACAC, and some other members, and indeed our glorious president, who indeed wishes that corruption be deracinated from Nigeria, but is going about it the wrong way. I am conceitedly sure that the methodology with which we are fighting corruption now can never work. Will never work.
Why do you think it will never work? The government has always said it's going to reduce corruption, and it has put in place policies and given the anti-corruption agency the full power to go all out to fight corruption. How do you think it will work, and how will this cut cost of governance?
If wishes were horses, beggars will ride. You know what? It is a good declaration and indeed a good intention by our president and some committed statesmen like Professor Isse Sage to want to fight corruption. But until the government employs or democratizes the opportunity for Nigerians to fight corruption and be incentivized for fighting corruption, I am telling you that it will not work. A typical example, some of us and some of your colleagues here who have been interviewing me for years would have known that for the last 5 years, I have been agitating and campaigning for a whistleblower's law. Indeed, the government experimented with it about 1.5 to 2 years ago,
Yes.
and it brought tremendous results. As we speak now, that law is yet to be sent as an executive bill to the legislature to be passed as law. Look, there is nothing you want to fight if you don't democratize the opportunity for the citizenry to join you in fighting it and incentivize them. That is why you will have, like the case of Ali Burton, where all those who were privy to the case in America are in jail, but all those who are privy to the case in Nigeria are walking free. You know what? Let's institute laws that will incentivize the fight against corruption and make you, as a young journalist, make a young accountant, forensic accountant, make a young lawyer to come together and look at the lifestyle of Gboloba relative to the non-ostensible, visible income of Gboloba and question the integrity of his expenditure.
Gboloba.
And if the state, hello?
We still have a situation where, in as much as we're fighting corruption, the cost of governance is said to be high. We have permanent secretaries who have a retinue of aides that possibly do the same thing over and over again. In what way will this fight against corruption?
Let me shock you. We even have an unfortunate philosophical disposition which will keep ballooning the cost of governance. And you know what? When Orosoye, the former head of service, when he recommended about 5 years ago that agencies of state replicating their functions and duties should be pruned down, we had less than 700 federal agencies there. As we speak, we now have more than 1,100 agencies. And you know why? Because for every law enacted, there is an agency that is created for that law's implementation. And because an agency is created, you will have a political appointee as the DG, Director General, and you have average for each agency, average of 200 employees.
Now, the Emir of Kano, that's the former CBN governor, Sanusi Lamido Sanusi II, said that about 70% of our annual budget is spent on payment of salaries and just 30% on capital expenditure and all of that. And the government is looking at running an inclusive government. And we also have a population of 200 million, of which 94% of this population is said to be living below the poverty line. When you look at all of this, where do we begin to address this issue when we talk about cutting the cost of governance and having an inclusive government that will be as impactful as it should be?
70% of our budget is used to pay salaries and emoluments of political office holders and bureaucrats. And majority of the bureaucrats, indeed 99% of the bureaucrats, or those who are in the civil service, are earning far below living wage. And the political office holders, because they are guaranteed their salaries and emoluments, and because of the strategic role and importance of their positions to rent seek or fleece their populace, they also don't attend to the job with vision, purpose, and legacy-driven inspiration. So I'm sitting there now thinking we have a perfect double whammy circumstance where the system that we have now will never serve the purpose that we desire of it. And when you have a dysfunctional system, when you have a dysfunctional organism at hand, what you want to do is to first attend to the central core of why the system is not working right and not the cosmetics. So when I hear politicians from the president talking about reducing the cost of government to the likes of distinguished Senator Rochas Okorocha, talking about pruning the number of senators, to Dr. Foyemi, the governor of Ekiti, talking about going from bicameral legislature to unicameral legislature, I sit down, they laugh. Because intellectually, these are cosmetics. These are not the answers that will attend to the jugular.
So what would be the answers that will attend or the jugular, if I may borrow your words now, because from the look of things, we are only just treating the symptoms. We are not tackling the issues from the root.
Yes, we don't seem to have the intellectual capacity, and that is the saddest thing for me, because when the PACAC, the committee that Professor Issa Sage, when that committee was inaugurated, I was very happy. I was very happy because I was thinking that with the capacity of somebody like Professor Issa Sage and some other members of the committee, that they would try to advise the government to adopt fundamental principles and philosophy of governance that will recalibrate the system we have now, where Bola will steal 1 billion naira, and when I steal 1 billion naira, some operatives in an agency of government will be chasing me around, and when they get me, we will go to court. I will hire the best lawyers in the land, because 200 million from 1 billion will get me the best lawyers in the land, and one ramshackle, frustrated lawyer will go and represent the government. And whenever I'm walking out of the courtroom, people can just see that even if I plead guilty, I will plead guilty based on the technicalities that my counsel give me, and the government will probably get 300 million. So I've expended 500 million from the stolen 1 billion, and I'm sitting over 500 million. This system will not work. It can never work. The intention of the president is right. The aspiration and the evangelical commitment of the likes of Professor Issa Sage is fundamentally right.
All right.
But the methodology with which they are going about it is practically wrong. It will not work.
Well, we have to leave it at this point. Thank you for your time.